This is Politics as usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. For the second day in a row, Hong Kong International Airport cancels all outbound flights because of the protesters there. Just hours before the cancellation of the flights, Chief Executive Carrie Lam warned the ongoing protests were pushing the city to the, quote, brink of no return. Hong Kong's top official says demonstrators did not have the law in mind when they caused damage to the city with their illegal activities. Lam adds they had, quote, attacked police officers with malice intention. The official points out it may take a long time for Hong Kong to recover, but she urges citizens to go against violence and help rebuild the city. One of the main 5 demands of Hong Kong's protest movement calls for Lam's resignation. But both the Hong Kong and Chinese governments have made it clear she's not going anywhere. We'll be speaking first with Amnesty International Hong Kong Section Director Man Kay Tam. Later on the show, we'll speak to the Philippine Consulate in Hong Kong, Consul Sheila Monedero Ernesto, and a group supporting overseas Filipino workers in Hong Kong, Global Alliance Chairman Leo Celomenio. But first, we speak to Man Kay Tam, or MK Tam, Director of Amnesty International in Hong Kong. MK?
Hi.
Hi, thank you very much for joining us. What does Carrie Lam mean when she says Hong Kong has been pushed to the brink of no return?
Well, I think on one hand, we see apparently the violence on both sides. That means the protesters and also police has been escalating the kind of violence they use. But on the other hand, we also see actually the excessive use of violence by the police force is very spectacular over the past weekend. And we see they are very high-handed in terms of use disproportionate level of force to beating up protesters, to use tear gas, rubber bullets, and beanbag rounds to fire at protesters, even though they were retreating. That is a very, very worrying signal.
And that is the brink of no return that Carrie Lam is referring to. In other words, police will continue to use these measures, to use these means against protesters?
Well, see, I don't see that Carrie Lam has any intention to de-escalate the situation. I think it is rather shameful that she take advantage of the clashes between the protesters and also the police officers to kind of reestablish her own legitimacy. It really doesn't help to de-escalate the situation, and it only inflames the protesters and also the police.
Well, as you just pointed out, and as you said in a statement yesterday, that Hong Kong police have, and we quote, fallen short of international standards by using tear gas and rubber bullets on protesters. Has there been any response or reaction from Hong Kong police?
Well, I think from Amnesty perspective, there are a lot of ugly scenes that show the Hong Kong police has use excessive force that violate human rights and also international standards. And it seems that the Hong Kong police is unwilling to admit that or to go into any investigation. That's why we asked for an independent investigation on police brutality since June.
Yeah, but MK, you know, there have been several video footage. We're showing one of them right now that shows protesters also throwing objects at the police and advancing toward police lines.
Yeah, well, we see that there is an escalation of violence from protesters. But when we're talking about the use of police force, we are also talking about the necessity and also proportionality. And along these two lines, I don't see that the police are doing a good job.
So far, MK, there is no sign of uniformed police, Hong Kong police presence at the airport where there are so many protesters. What are we to make of this? Why do you think this is happening? No police presence there, at least uniformed.
I think it is not surprising that after last Sunday's bloodshed and also very ugly scenes by the police force, protesters were inflamed to escalate their action to a new level. So the sit-in right now in the Hong Kong airport it's actually a sign in itself that the escalation is continuing and also the tension is heightening.
And you don't expect that the police will show up there anytime soon, at least uniformed police presence?
Well, it is very difficult to estimate what will happen. I think both the Hong Kong government and also the Hong Kong police has to consider if the situation goes on like this, at some point their weapons will may have the chance to kill somebody in the protesting crowd.
MK, by occupying the airport, protesters have of course made it difficult for travelers, and that's why the airport authorities responded by canceling flights for the second day in a row, like we were saying earlier. On the one hand, protest, of course, is a legitimate form of expression. On the other, this is, as we can all admit, a major disruption. And Beijing has gone even as far as calling it more than protest. What do you think Beijing is going to do next?
Well, I don't know, but actually it is. We should also, on the other hand, ask what Carrie Lam should do to de-escalate the situation. I think there are two things that she definitely can do. First of all, is to officially announce the withdrawal of the bill, and secondly, to set up an independent investigation to investigate what has happened since June, especially on the use of force by the police.
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? What is the first thing that she must do?
I think Carrie Lam should officially announce the withdrawal of the bill.
The bill, the extradition bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but in an earlier press conference, she was asked if, and I paraphrase, if Beijing could she make that decision on her own? She wasn't giving a very direct answer to that question. Do you think she can do that on her own? Can the Hong Kong government?
It is definitely within her remit to say that the bill, to withdraw the bill officially. This is within her remit.
And she doesn't need to be dictated upon by Beijing. It seems to be a very sore spot for Beijing.
Yeah, I think she has no intention to de-escalate the situation. That's why I said it's rather shameful that she tries to take advantage of the tension between the police and the protesters.
There's a lot of speculation now, MK, because several media networks have been reporting about the presence of uniformed Chinese military just at the border between Hong Kong and is it Shenzhen, and there's a lot of speculation and fear that about what may happen next, and that's why I was asking, what do you think Beijing is going to do next, and what are we looking at in the next few days? Because as the protesters seem to show, they're not going anywhere. So it's what is this? Stalemate?
I think
something?
I think at this point, it is not to anybody's benefit to send in the Chinese army into Hong Kong. And I think right now the rhetoric, the narrative that the Chinese authorities is using is not helpful to the situation in terms of de-escalate the tension and the situation in Hong Kong.
All right. Final words, MK Tam of Amnesty International Hong Kong. Final words, MK.
What Carrie Lam, I think we urge Carrie Lam to step out instead of taking advantage of the situation, to withdraw the bill and to set up an independent investigation.
MK Tam of the Amnesty International Hong Kong, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We're taking a quick break. Politics as usual. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Politics as usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. We're talking about what's happening in Hong Kong. Speaking with us now, the Philippine consul in Hong Kong, Sheila Monedero Ernesto. Consul Ernesto, thank you very much for joining us, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, flights have been cancelled, and again, for the second day in a row, outbound flights. I asked the Chinese embassy here in Manila about foreign nationals presently in mainland China, for example, who have connecting flights to Hong Kong or through Hong Kong. And they said that these nationals, foreign nationals, including Filipino nationals, can always ask for proof of flight delay because and that Chinese and Hong Kong immigration will understand because this is because of force majeure. Is this something that Filipino nationals there can do? I mean, of course, wala namang visa to go to Hong Kong, no? 14 days without a visa. Pero meron ding, yun na nga, no, na sinasabi ko, may dumadaan kasi ng Hong Kong, may connecting flights.
Yes, we have travelers who are passing through Hong Kong as a connecting flight. They have been advised to wait for the airline to advise them with regard to the rescheduling of their flight. And then for those who are in urgent need of reaching another destination, then we advise them that they can go to Macau to get another flight. But
Yes.
in that case, it will be up to them to buy another ticket.
Oo. Pero Consul, of course, we know how difficult that is. We have people also who are in, for example, in mainland China and have a connecting flight through Hong Kong, but they can't get on the flight from Shanghai, for example, to Hong Kong, precisely because of the situation at the airport. And then, ang problema din nila doon, and I forgot to mention this earlier, which is why it's an immigration concern, their visas are expiring at certain dates. Hindi po ba?
Well, actually, the most convenient and most feasible manner of getting out of Hong Kong is through Macau because it will be only a 45-minute ride, either by ferry or by train. Bus.
Okay, all right. Ma'am, also, let's talk about other matters because Malacanang today, through presidential spokesperson Sal Panelo, had said the best advice they can give is for Filipino nationals who are supposed to travel to Hong Kong to cancel their travel plans, to avoid Hong Kong at the moment. I suppose this is something that the Philippine consulate there would agree with.
Right now, Pia, there has been no report of a Filipino who has been injured during any of these clashes. The clashes are mostly concentrated between the protesters and the police. So the violence is limited to specific areas. It's not as widespread as the media seem to imply. And there has been only one instance when a Filipino has been arrested. But other than that, we have not received any report from any Filipino that they have been injured in the clashes.
Not as widespread because these protests happening in, well, like right now in the airport, a few days ago in one district, in different districts, no? And
Okay. It's right now, of course, the travelers cannot avoid the demonstration area because the demonstration area is right at the airport. But there has been no incidents of violence. No one has been hurt. The rallies at the airport are generally peaceful.
I see.
They would sit and try to disrupt the flight, but they have not hurt anyone. And yes, there have been instances when some of the rallies have been held in tourist areas, like let's say Chimsha Choy, Nathan Road. These are famous shopping districts. But before the protest happens, there is usually advice from the police and from the protesters that there will be protests. And for those who are staying at the hotels, their hotel also provides them with advice with regard to the protests that are going on.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, what you're saying is that those who have travel plans for Hong Kong need not cancel those travel plans as long as their flights have not been canceled. Ganun po ba? O okay lang na pumunta doon?
Right now, we know that this is the second straight day in a row when there has been a problem with the airport.
Yes.
But we still leave it up to the travelers to decide if they would like to risk having being inconvenienced by this disruption in the airport services.
Okay.
But our advice is that before, if they decide that they still want to go to Hong Kong, despite what they know is the situation right now, then they should coordinate with their airline first to find out if the
flight has not been
pushed
cancelled.
through.
Yes.
Yes, and what
Yes.
are the contingency plans in case it is cancelled?
And if they do get to Hong Kong, to take extra precaution.
Yes,
like you're
always
saying, yeah.
avoid the demonstration areas, and mostly just stick to the tourist areas. Although right now, since there have been quite a few times when Chim Sha Tsui has been the scene of massive protest, then
Yes.
we would advise that maybe they could choose another area where they would be safer.
Consul, you mentioned that one Filipino national who got caught up in one of the protests a few weeks ago. What has happened to him and his situation, his case so far?
Right now, he's out on bail.
I see. And he's
And
facing...
there's a lawyer assisting him.
I see. He's out on bail, and the charges against him are...
His case is still under investigation.
I see. For what charges?
We still don't know what the charge is. It's still under investigation.
I see. All right. And so far, like you said, for those who plan to travel to Hong Kong, if they can get there, to take extra precaution or coordinate with their airline, with their air carrier, for example. And I suppose that is the same advice you give to Filipinos living and working there in Hong Kong.
Yes. In fact, we have more than 230,000 Filipinos in Hong Kong. And now no one has complained of being hurt in this clashes. When the consulate feels that there is really reason to be worried that if the violence becomes prevalent and widespread to all areas or a lot of significant number of areas, then we will make the necessary advisories.
All right. And what are your concerns about the way the protests have gone, the way the police also have dealt with protesters, and the way protesters have, well, engaged the police?
Well, we are not, we respect the internal laws of Hong Kong, and whatever issues that they have between the government and the society and the public, we hope that they can be resolved in an amicable manner, and we hope that the violence would stop and that inconvenience to the public, to the travelers, such as this one at the airport, would stop.
And do you also hope that this tense situation will de-escalate?
Yes, of course.
Of course. Consul Sheila Monedero Ernesto of the Philippine Consulate in Hong Kong. Ma'am, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We're taking our final break. Politics as usual. We will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Politics as Usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. We now speak to the chairman of a group supporting overseas Filipino workers in Hong Kong, Leo Celomenio of Global Alliance. Leo, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
Hello, Leo?
Hello.
Yeah. Okay. Well, can you tell us kamusta na ba yung mga OFW dyan? Walang problema, no? As long as they don't join the protests, for example. They just keep out of the way.
Kami naman dito sa home. Magpunta sa kami.
Sorry, can you repeat what you said? We have a little bit of audio difficulty here.
Hello.
Yes, Leo, can you repeat what you said? Medyo nagkakaroon lang kami ng audio difficulty.
Okay. How about this?
Sige, go ahead. Go ahead.
Kami dito sa Hong Kong, okay naman as long as kami mga
Alright, medyo may konting audio problems, but what you're saying is okay naman kayo dyan as long as hindi kayo sumasali sa mga protest activities or hindi sumasali or napapadaan dun sa mga area na may protest activity.
medyo ko kapag sa weekdays kasi yung protest. So, yung mga helper.
Okay. I'm going to try and guess what Leo is saying, pero we're going to try and get a better line to Leo Celomenio of Global Alliance. It is a group that supports overseas Filipino workers in Hong Kong. He's joining us now by phone. Leo?
Yes, Miss Pia, good evening.
Ayun, okay. That's better. By phone na lang tayo. Medyo may disruption din ata sa audio sa
Nakita-kita ang ganda
Viber.
mo eh.
Oo. Okay. So, ang sinasabi mo lang is that wala naman talagang problema as long as hindi sumasali sa mga protesta, hindi napapadaan sa mga area na may protest.
Yes, exactly. As long na hindi kami napapadaan sa area kung saan yung rally, safe naman. At saka yung Philippine Consulate is always giving us the update kung saan yung protest. So para maiiwasan yung pagpunta sa mga ganong klaseng lugar.
At saka namomonitor nyo naman sa media, sa TV, sa radio.
Oo,
may
namomonitor naman namin sa news every now
sa
and then.
internet.
So alam namin kung saan.
Aha, okay. Ang naapektuhan lang siguro yung mga negosyo na, the businesses where some OFWs work, right? Can you give us an example?
Sa businesses naman, on the business side naman, siyempre apektado sila kasi pag merong protest sa lugar na yun, magsasarado sila. Early magsasara kasi takot naman. Kahit nga dito sa place namin, we're in North Point, dito the other night, sobrang gulo. Pero hindi lang kami bumaba ng bahay namin.
Okay, so you just avoid these areas like Consul Sheila Ernesto was saying. No? Basta nag-avoid na lang kayo doon sa mga area kung saan may mga protesta.
Sa mga areas where there are protesters.
Hindi ba tuwing linggo kasi every Sunday merong gathering yung ibang mga OFW dyan? Tuloy pa rin ba yan? Hindi nagbaback out yung iba dahil natatakot na baka may mangyari, gano'n?
Hindi, affected talaga. Walang nag-i-events this past few months since na merong rally. After the Independence Day, wala nang nag-i-event kasi syempre medyo delikado naman tayo dyan kung dadaan sila sa lugar kung saan kami nag-i-event. Affected talaga. So avoid na lang danger.
Okay. So avoid danger or avoid the possibility of any
For our safety.
violence.
For our safety. Kailangan talaga stay away from the protesters na lugar.
Oo. Leo, para sa mga Pilipino na nandyan, given the history of our country, back in 1986, there was a people power revolution. Of course, hindi naman ito siguro, hindi pa ito yung revolution or people power revolution kung tawagin, what's happening in Hong Kong. But among Filipino nationals there, who live and work there in Hong Kong, ano yung mga usapan nyo about what is happening when you see these young people protesting on the streets and when you remember or look back on the past of the Philippines?
Masakit. Actually, pag nakikita namin itong mga young students on the road na they are suffering kahit may signal number 8 na typhoon, nandun sila to protect their country. Masakit talaga para sa amin na Pilipino and we are so worried na baka pag hindi naayos itong ipinaglalaban nila, of course, lahat kami mapapauwi sa Pilipinas. It would be very difficult for all of us. Ang sitwasyon namin ngayon is hanging kaming lahat. Dahil hindi namin alam kung until when the government makipagtigasan dito sa mga
protesters to give in to the request. Na kung tutuusin, madali lang naman sana siguro kasi noon isa lang ang hinihingi nila, ngayon marami na. So, sa dami ng hinihingi nila, we are not sure. We are not really sure kung hanggang kailan makipagmatigasan ang gobyerno dito sa mga protesters. So kung sa mga protesters lang naman, safe talaga kami kasi actually they are having a peaceful rally lang naman eh. Peaceful rally lang yung ginagawa nila and they are fighting for their country, for their right. Na kami din, maalala ko yung during the time na pag mag-people power, ganito pala katindi. Medyo mahirap din sa side namin at mahirap din kami magsalita dahil hindi naman kami talaga
Oo naman,
dito.
kasi, dahil foreign nationals
Taga-Hong
kayo.
Kong, oo.
Of course, you are in a
Yes.
foreign land.
So, pero base sa nakikita namin sa sitwasyon, medyo masakit sa dibdib na yung mga bata, they are aging 15, 16, 17, at ang pinakamatanda yata is 22. Mga students ang mga to eh. So, they are fighting for their country. Sobrang pagmamahal nila sa bansa nila na nagpapagutom itong mga to eh. Nagpapagutom sila sa daan, araw-gabi, para isigaw yung karapatan nila.
Yeah. Okay. And like what you said, earlier we were speaking to the Amnesty International Hong Kong. We also spoke to Consul Sheila Ernesto. And you also say the same thing. You hope that this de-escalates before it gets any worse.
Yes.
All right. The
We are
chairman.
not so certain kung hanggang kailan matatapos ang itong chaos na to, but we are really praying so hard na sana matapos na para lahat kami mga OFW dito would back to normal. We will go back to normal life kasi ngayon maraming mga businesses ang affected. Sa airport, nagsasarado. So yung mga flights were canceled. Mga ganong bagay na before Hong Kong is a very peaceful country to live in. Ngayon hindi na eh.
Right. Okay. Lea Celemonio, Global Alliance Chairman, maraming salamat. Thank you for joining us this evening. And thank you to our guests earlier also. That's Politics as Usual this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Pia Hontiveros.